More than 40 million Americans smoke, and many of them keep smoking even though they've tried to quit, which is why a study just published in the journal Science has drawn so much attention. Researchers found evidence that damage to a certain area of the brain can erase a smoker's craving for nicotine. Let's talk about what this could mean with one of the authors of that study. Nasser Naqvi is a medical student at the University of Iowa, and he's here with us exclusively this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
So just explain in the simplest terms what you found.
Sure. It's just like you said. What we found is that people who are smoking, who acquire damage to a particular part of the brain called the insula, and it's a part of the brain that's sort of a prune-sized structure that's sort of underneath the ear, if you will. When they acquire that damage, it seems that it's very easy for them to quit smoking, and they're able to quit without relapsing and without having a strong urge to smoke after they quit.
And there's one particular patient who kind of inspired this study. This guy smoked, what, 40 cigarettes a day?
Right.
And what happened with him?
Well, as you mentioned, he was a very heavy smoker, and by his own admission, he was very addicted to smoking before his stroke. And then he had a stroke at a relatively young age, and woke up in the hospital, and he had no urge to smoke. In fact, he started to think that smoking was kind of a disgusting thing after that. It was kind of an interesting thing. And so he was able to quit very easily, and he never started smoking again. And in fact, even in his dreams, smoking, which used to be this pleasurable thing, became sort of this unpleasant experience. It was kind of an interesting and very striking change that he underwent.
Now, the question is, what does this mean? I mean, it doesn't mean that we're going to see cigarette addicts lining up to get brain surgery, right? Yeah,
I doubt that's going to happen. There are other adverse effects of this type of brain damage. So, for example, certain impairments of language, in taste, and impairments of mood, and also it increases your risk for certain kinds of heart attacks, if you will. So it's not something that we want to go around giving people willy-nilly lesions in the insula to help them quit smoking.
But this could inspire other treatments now that we've isolated this part of the brain, the insula.
Right, and we certainly hope so. I should add that this is not necessarily the only part of the brain that may act in this way. It's one part of the brain that we chose to study, and so it shows that this part of the brain, at least, could be a very important target for therapies for smoking addiction.
And this could work for other addictions as well, not necessarily just smoking?
It's certainly possible. And the evidence suggests that it could be. So we know that when people are craving drugs of various kinds, including cigarettes, that this part of the brain becomes activated. That a lesion would disrupt smoking addiction suggests that it might also disrupt other kinds of addiction as well.
You know, it's fascinating. My mother actually had a cerebral aneurysm and was a smoker, went into the hospital,
Really?
Afterwards quit smoking, but we always thought that it was just that she was in the hospital. She had to quit cold turkey. But it actually, this could be a big thing. It could be something more than that.
Right. It's interesting that you bring that up because a number of people have contacted me to say that, you know, I had a stroke and I was a smoker and all of a sudden I woke up in the hospital. It was very easy for me to just never smoke again. And it's been one of the more satisfying parts of doing this to hear those stories. And we don't know whether they had damage in that part of the brain or maybe some other part of the brain that's important for addiction, but certainly it's a very interesting and very compelling change that these people go through.
This could make a big difference to smokers down the road.
Let's hope so.
Nasser Naqvi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
And coming up next on the Saturday Early Show,